Good afternoon, everyone. Technological advancements in audiovisual production and reproduction have made it possible to almost perfectly mimic and even freely reproduce the human body and voice. This points in particular to the current surge in artificial intelligence AI. This has meant that forever, Teresa Teng, the catchy nostalgic memorial term born out of ardent fan desire, has finally come true virtually as a real-life hologram. On December 31st, 2021, Teresa Teng, or rather the most recent AI virtual human iteration of the late Taiwanese singer, appeared on stage in Jiangsu Satellite Television's New Year's Eve Gala 2022. In the midst of praise in the Chinese language media inside and outside of China, criticism surfaced. A prominent complaint was that audiences had listened to an emptiness, on realizing that the singing voice was not Teng's. From the practice of watching to listening, my question is, why did the sonic aspect of the performance become such a challenge? I attempt to provide an answer to this sonic challenge by laying out the two similar listening methods under different technological conditions where Teng's singing has been mediated in mainland China. To explain the listening culture in China, I apply Holger Swayze's ideas of sonic persona and sonic generativity to argue that mainland Chinese audiences shared an imperfect sonic persona when they perceived Teng's singing, and so felt let down by their own imperfect sonic generativity, which prevented them from recognizing Teng's voice. Let us first trace how mainlanders got to know Teng by listening during the post-Strait Cold War. In the late 1960s, when Teng became popular in Taiwan and overseas Chinese communities, mainland China was mired in the Cultural Revolution, and popular music was frowned on as a bad influence and prohibited. This failed to stop Teng's popularity from spreading to the mainland, and her voice became a sound of desire. When Deng Xiaoping regained his leadership position of the country after the end of the Cultural Revolution, this famous quote, "Listen to the old Deng in the day, listen to the little Deng at night," emerged. Not only does this phrase reflect that many mainlanders saw Teng as being as important as Deng Xiaoping, but it also shows people wish to listen to Teng days and nights. This also demonstrates that the society was equipped with audio broadcasting technologies that a listening culture had already developed in daily life. Sources suggest that anyone, living humans and humanoids, can become sonic persona when listeners are, quote, trained in more specific and refined ways to thoroughly approach his or her or his environment by means of a hearing perspective, who is capable of assessing various sensory emanations of audible, tactile, and vibratory events radiating in a given environment, end quote. This leads to an investigation of how the ordinary public listens to Teng and how such unintentional, repeated listening practices trained them to become a sonic persona for Teng's voice in this specific social context in mainland China. The establishment on the mainland of a listening culture can be traced to the establishment of the New China, a time when the Chinese Communist Party started to develop a nationwide radio broadcasting network. Sound transmission via the radio network blurred the boundary between urban and rural and extended the urban sonically. Radio broadcasting changed and could even have set the pace for everyday life, since its sole purpose at that time was to support the CCP's official radio broadcasts, which propagandized revolutionary ideologies, revolutionary songs, and the 8 model works known as Yang Ban Si, carrying and promoting the desired ideologies performed by professionals or amateurs were also transmitted. In addition, the CCP also cultivated a collective listening habit by setting up organized listening sessions to ensure people attended and listened to the broadcast attentively in a public open space setting. This established a structure of listening. This also established a tectostimology, which means the application of technology mediates, quote, individuals knowledge and interpretations of sensations in and consequent actions upon the acoustic environment as granted in the specific times and places of the production and reception of sound. End quote. Thus, by taking part repeatedly, people were trained to treat the sound from the loudspeakers or radio sets as the official and idealized message from the leaders. In such a public, teleologized setting, audiences did not treat such sounds as background sound or noise. Instead, they listened to these mediated sounds without seeing the original source of sound, but took them as official, true, and real. As a radio network is an open-loop system, the unseen radio waves formed an invisible battlefield during the Cold War. In addition to the CCP's official broadcasting, amateur radio and enemy stations were available radio signal in the mainland's air. People were able to access these stations in private and secret settings when they were beyond public surveillance. This was how Teng's true, real, and original voice and singing spread to the mainland and was perceived by individuals. While the CCP tried to educate people to avoid such enemy stations, it also practiced jamming such stations to shield the general population. Thus, how clearly and smoothly Teng's true, real, and original singing was transmitted via radio and was secretly perceived by individuals depend on the signal reception and frequency of jamming. If listening poor or jammed radio broadcast signals made Teng's voice unclear, the wish to listen to her true, real, and original voice from cassette recordings was even more unattainable. This built another kind of tactile stimology. On one hand, cassettes for her music, whether original, pirated, or perhaps faked, were smuggled into and spread throughout the mainland. It is reported that audiences were occasionally unable to identify if the female voice from the cassettes was Teng's, but they chose to believe so. Then, limitations of production materials result in cassettes degrading over time or usage, causing poor, unclear, or scratchy sound. In 1981, Wu Yonggang, a military pilot of China, surrendered to Taiwan. And asked to meet Teng in a press conference. So at the press conference, Teng sang 2 songs without musical accompaniment in front of Wu. He claimed that, compared with the cassettes copied after copies that I secretly listened to in the army, this live singing is so clear and so catchy, and it cannot be catchier than this. I am blessed. This example shows how ordinary mainlanders became a sonic persona towards Teng's voice, cultivated in an environment with limited technology, filled with unclear, scratchy sounds. Her voice was never clearly heard or listened to in such a social-cultural and technological context. Their sonic generativity in recognizing Teng's singing was a result of collective imagination based on the imperfect sound perceived by individuals in private and secret settings in the forbidden time. When there was a ban on Teng's music issued in 1982, when this gradually fades out, listening to Teng no longer had to be done in secret or private spaces. The open secret of listening to forbidden popular music in private via enemy radio station and or cassettes can now be shared and done collectively. And in the current digital era, one can easily find Teng's music, again, both the authentic originals recorded when she was alive and the fake ones on the internet, including social media and video platforms such as China's Bilibili and Youku. Not until 2021's posthumous virtual human performance was Teng's first ever public live performance on a mainland television program targeting Chinese audiences, regardless of where they reside. It was also the first time the intended mainland Chinese audiences could see and listen to her simultaneously and collectively in front of their television sets or screens via the platforms Tencent, iQIYI, and Youku. This was as if an organized listening session presenting the same structure of listening in a digital audiovisual setting in a modern society. This similar tactile stimology gave the audiences an impression that what they were going to see and listen to were official, true, real, and original. During the 2021 performance, numerous indicators continuously reminded the audiences that the virtual human represented Teng, and she was performing. She and the male singer Zhou Shen performed 3 songs together. Each song began with their names displayed along with the song title. She appeared via her virtual human with her face without aging and moved vividly as if truly alive. In the middle of the performance, she talked to the audiences. Hello everyone, I am Teng Lijun. The use of I in the dialogue emphasized her presence. More importantly, the audiences witnessed the virtual Teng with a body. This is the source of human voice production. When the origin or cause of the sound is visible, this can provide more information about the sound. In this case, seeing Teng's virtual body enforced the identity of her singing, which belonged to her, the virtual human, and also her, the late or forever Teng. However, these setups misled the audiences. They then discovered that Chen Jia was covering Teng's singing and talking behind the scenes. Teng's virtual human was not supported by a new voice generated from her own or via sound conversion, as other deepfake videos are produced. When this claimed to be AI performance ended up to be a low-class deepfake, the entire idea of presenting a Teresa Teng performance collapsed due to the inauthentic, untrue, unreal, and unidentifiable voice. This paper studies the importance of the reproduction and production of sound in a posthumous performance by presenting a case of semi-AI performance. In this posthumous performance, only the image of Teng's virtual human was AI generated, but her voice was mimicked by another human instead of learning with Teng's original voice and further generating by the AI technology. I show that under the specific social historical context, mainland Chinese audiences have built a listening culture via available technology, in which the invisible and unavailable of the production source of the sound has displayed and made the technology the source of origin. The public then take the sound disseminated technologically from loudspeakers, radio sets, television sets to screens as official, true, and real in a collective setting. Yet, one may not be able to avoid pirated or mimicked or fake singings from Teng in these sources. The perception of how the singing sounds like has been unclear, unreal, and maybe unsuccessful. This led to the audiences being disappointed or even feeling failed when they realized that they were not listening to her original voice in this supposed first ever live performance. They could not identify her voice because of her inadequate creation of the sonic persona and failed sonic generativity to recognize her voice in a similar yet digitized listening environment. Thank you so much.